Hello, greetings, my dears. Welcome to week 3 of thothtober. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you our first activity, which is about smell and aroma, as well as inhalation. And I'll be sharing the PDF in the description down below, as well as the Discord if you'd like to join and converse about your experience there and hear about others' experiences. And the playlist for thothtober is also in the description. And then in the second half of the video, I'll be sharing my experience with this activity. So let's get into it. First, I just want to say apologies for the late video this week. I have not actually been feeling well, so I'm filming this later than I planned, and just been trying to get my body to a place where I feel like I can film, and I'm not even really fully all the way there, but yeah, I'm feeling somewhat better, and so I'm here with you. Happy to be here. So for the first part of the activity, scent and aroma, I decided to look at these words quite differently, even though they are by definition interchangeable on some levels. I decided to look at them a little bit differently. So we're looking at scent as a distinctive smell, and aroma, although that also can be a distinctive smell, we'll be looking at the side of aroma, which is a subtle, pervasive quality or atmosphere of a particular type. So kind of like the aroma of failure, that kind of thing. I don't know why that's what comes to mind, but that's always the one that comes to mind for me. Anyway, so for this one, it's kind of similar to some other activities that we've done. For this one, where's my deck? Pull a card, and as you look on that card, start to feel if there's like a scent or scents that you feel like would be associated with particular smells based on like what you're seeing and the vibes that you're getting from the card. By the way, I've been really enjoying filming here. I only filmed here once. I don't know why I'm saying I really enjoyed it as if I've done it so many times. But I want to continue. I want to try like sitting here. I don't have like a table, so I kind of have to surround myself with the stuff on like this couch with me. But yeah, I've been kind of, I thought this is kind of nice and cozy a little bit. I'll get more pillows maybe and make it a little bit more cozy. Anyway, so an example that, you can do that with, like just grabbing a random card here. So I know that this is a 4 of Wands, it's completion, but as I'm looking at it, I'm thinking about like the colors just giving me like forest vibes. So I'm just like thinking of the scent of the forest, like what are the scents there? You have like the lumber, you have like, depending on the season, like it's going to smell maybe differently. So I could think about like with that fire in the middle, maybe I'm thinking about fall and kind of what the associations are. I know there's a very particular forest that I like to go to in the fall and take photos there and hang out there with my friend. And yeah, I'm just thinking about the scents there. Yeah. I'm thinking of like bugs and kind of the wood, not the wood just from the trees, like the different wood smell that you get from like being in the trees, but then the smell of like the picnic tables and like sunscreen, depending, well, not in the fall, maybe you're not doing sunscreen, but even the fire, I could also think about it as summer with sunscreen. I usually like to bring books into the forest as well to read. And so, thinking about the smell of like like an old book as well. That's a good vibe. Anyways, so I can go in any direction that I want with this, or any direction of scents that feel like, that come to me. Actually, let's keep going with this. You can look at this as the aroma of, I'm thinking of like being like supported by the trees, or like the comfort of, I want to say the comfort of the forest. That feels a little too simple, but is something a little bit more. Almost like the whispering trees or something like that, like the whispering woods. I don't know, something like that. And then you can kind of see like what does that change for you about the card? Obviously, all of these exercises are there to sort of take you on a sensory journey, but also that allowing that to sort of filter into how you see that card into the future and moving forward potentially. So it's something to think about there. And just want to give another quick example, see if I can pull another card here. Okay, I've got the Princess of Discs. Okay, were we doing the trees again? This one's a little bit even more obvious, so maybe we should do a different one actually, because that one's a little too obvious. Why are we getting all like wandsy type of cards? Okay, but this one, I actually got this one. So I will share actually my experience for this one now, because I did get this one as part of my activity. So I got like fire, but like not fire in the sense of like a bonfire or anything like that. I kind of got it as like a candle. Like, I don't know, maybe it's because it's a 3 and it's like orange like that. I thought of it as like almost like a scented candle. And like maybe like thinking of like a pumpkin spice candle, or like, I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking autumn vibes, but it's relevant, right? I'm thinking of like different scents that you might get in the fall, but I'm thinking like pumpkin spice was one of the things that I thought of very heavily. And with that, I was kind of thinking of like, with the pumpkin spice, with the fall season, I started to think about like education, the aroma of education, and then also like the aroma of like homemaking. Something about like having like this like warm home, and like the smell of like the aroma of like a very, yeah, like a home that's like being like well loved and well taken care of. And then the other thing was like planning for success. I don't know, something about it just also had me thinking about like school, and like the smell of like pencils and paper and like books and libraries and things like that. I don't know, something about the orange just really had me in all of the sensory experiences of fall, and thinking about like scheduling and things like that. Obviously this also comes with like my general thoughts that I tend to think about with the 3 of Wands as well. So there's kind of like this amalgamation of all of your senses coming together, but we're really focusing on scents and the sensory experience of the aromatics of the experiences that you have. So I find that to be really interesting, and it was really fun to do. You can also put the scent first, so you can also like pick a scent and then go through the deck and pick a card as well. So that's another option if you wanted to do that as well. I think going back and forth might be really, really fun. So you can do that for as many cards as you want to and just really enjoy it. Like I said, you could probably do it for the entire deck, which is really cool. But for the second part of the activity is a little reading about inhalation. So this week I really wanted to focus on inhalation and exhalation, which we'll focus on in the next part, because just the breath is such a important part of this sense. And so I really wanted to center on it. It was just something that felt really important to me, and for some reason the lungs as well, just thinking about the process of breathing in the body, not only as the scents kind of go up into sort of our olfactory system in the brain, well, in the nose and going up to the brain, but also the descent and dispersion of the breath and the oxygen throughout the body. So there's this, without the breathing, we wouldn't have the scent part and the smelling part, and, you know, air, and how, you know, these odor molecules that are in the air that we're taking in, along with, you know, everything else. But yeah, I kind of wrote here, breathing in is an essential part of our smell, our sense of smell. And we'll briefly explore the process of inhalation, which affords us vital energy via oxygen traveling through the lungs and beyond, as well as facilitates the odor molecules traveling through the olfactory system to the brain. So I really wanted to focus on that process as well for this week. So for this section, we're going to have a reading about inhalation. It's a little four card reading, 4 questions that we're going to explore, which I don't know, honestly, this is kind of like partly my favorite part of it, if that makes sense. I don't know, something about the inhalation and exhalation just served as a really powerful like foundation to the smell this week. And we'll get more into the other aspects of smell, which is the olfactory system and memory and all of those things in the next one. This one is really just focusing on what we're taking in. And the first question is, what in my environment is being drawn into my being? So just as air is drawn into the body, and what in my environment is being drawn into me? That was just such a juicy question. And it kind of began the the exploration here. That was the first question that came to mind, and I was like, all right, we really have to explore this. The second question is, how is this being dispersed through my being? And so, like the oxygen, as well as the scent molecules are coming in, but how is it being dispersed in our being? So like, where is it going, and what effects are induced by that? Like I was saying before with like the oxygen as well, like that gives us energy to our cells. It's very important. So yeah, how is what is being drawn in being dispersed through my being? Where's it going? How's it, affecting me? And the third question is, how does this process influence my actions? So sorting, like, to thinking about breath, it's an automatic process. So it kind of makes me think of, but a deep breath is something that's not as automatic and is more intentional and conscious. So how are you like sort of acting in an unconscious way, in a conscious way? Is it intentional, automatic, that kind of thing? How is it influencing your actions? And lastly, the fourth question is, why is this process occurring? So the way that oxygen is being taken in and the purpose that it serves, and even scent as well, and the powerful force that is our sense of smell in life. Why is this process occurring? Is there a purpose behind it? Is it something that's patterned, that's kind of happening within the context of time and space? Why is it happening? What's if there's a purpose behind it, what is it? And so those are the 4 questions. I really enjoyed this reading so much, I can't even say. So I'd be really curious to know what you guys' experiences are of it. If you'd like to share it, please let me know in the comments. And if you're going to leave for this section and come back to my experience after, I bid you farewell. I love you dearly. Bye. Alrighty, my experience of this, I shared a little bit already with the 3 of Wands. But yeah, I found this first part of the activity, the scent and aroma, really interesting and really fun. It is meant to be a fun activity to engage not only the senses but the imagination. But yeah, so the first card that I got was so interesting. I don't even have it out right now. But I got the moon. Oh my god, here it is. I got the moon, and God, this card just really keeps coming up. This thothtober. So it's going to be something that will probably be part of like my wrapping up for myself, a card that comes up a lot, and kind of tracking it throughout the month and seeing like what has come up with it. But I'm not too much focused on that right now. What I got, really interestingly enough, a lot of the cards really made me think about the forest, which I'm finding to be really interesting. This one definitely gave me forest vibes, specifically because I know that as I've worked with it already in this month, it's brought up going on a path and being in the unknown. And all I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about the moon is like a dark forest, which is a whole other concept. It is a the dark forest theory. I think I don't know exactly what it's called, but I know it's so funny, when I start talking about my experience, more things come to mind than when I just wrote them down. But the dark forest theory is like, it's about whether or not we are alone in space, and pretty much that like we're all in a dark forest, and kind of like, God, I'm not going to explain this well. If you can explain this theory better than me, please put it in the comments. But it's about like kind of being, not wanting to be the first one to like reveal yourself, because then you kind of put a spotlight on you and you don't know who else is out there. So it's kind of like this dangerous, potentially dangerous idea around, being like the space itself is kind of like a dark forest, and the risks involved with being seen and heard and perceived in that space. God, I'm probably not going to explain this. I should probably just look it up really quick, huh? Okay, so apparently the dark forest hypothesis is the conjecture that many alien civilizations exist throughout the universe, but they are both silent and hostile, maintaining their undetectability for fear of being destroyed by another hostile and undetected civilization. So it's like the idea, well, the reason why I thought of it was, I know that Liu Cixin's book, The Three-Body Problem, the sequel, I'm pretty sure, is called The Dark Forest. And yeah, so it's like the idea that there are alien civilizations out there, but they don't want to be perceived because, they assume that, it's either be unseen and be safe or be seen and be destroyed kind of thing. Anyway, not at all what I was originally thinking when I thought about the moon, but it's what I'm thinking of now. But yeah, so it was really giving me this idea of being like in a dark forest and kind of being like lost and confused. And I got this smell of like dirt and mud, of like sweat. And I don't know why. I also got this smell of like resin. I was thinking about, I don't know why I started thinking about like violins and resin. I was also thinking about like the smell of like the ocean, like that salty, eggy smell. I don't know. I live by the water and sometimes I kind of get that smell. And yeah, so those are some of the, and like, I guess that I was thinking more of like also a coniferous. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly. I hope I get that right. But yeah, so I was thinking about like pine needles and things like that. But yeah, for the aroma wise, I think the one thing that was just, it was just like the aroma of fear. It was almost like a pheromone kind of thing. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's giving, this is the aroma of fear. And yeah, so very interesting with that one. Another interesting one was the 10 of discs. That one went, and I think it set the tone, not set the tone fully, but it really showed me that these activities can really take you continually in directions that you don't expect, even with, even as you like sort of, for me, I'm like, I get used to them. I made them in my mind. So like they seem like they wouldn't surprise me, but obviously they continue to, and it's really cool. And I really enjoy that. But yeah, the 10 of discs was really interesting to me because it's such a, like in my mind, a very positive card. But like really when I was really gazing on it, I started to get some like really like gross feelings. First of all, I smelled like metal. Like I was just looking at all of this. I say metal very generally, but I was looking at this and I'm thinking of like coins and change, and it's like this very like brassy or I don't know, nickel, silver. These kind of like scents. I don't even know if those are technically scents, like if they're have an olfactory aspect to them, or if it's like how they interact with the environment that creates the scent molecules. I'm not really sure. I remember in high school my teacher told me that skin doesn't have a smell, that it's really like what you kind of put on the skin that creates the scent, or like I guess like secretions as well, but like skin itself does, like the molecules aren't small enough to be taken in through our sense of smell, and that really blew my mind. And I didn't believe it. I kind of don't believe it. No, I believe my teacher. But it's been a while since I've looked that up, but I just thought it was really interesting. But anyway, so I was thinking about this smell of metal. Apologies for the sniffle. And it started making me think of, so like of change, obviously with the coins here, but also of like a vault. I was thinking of like a lot of money in a vault, and like this like big vault metal door. So it's so interesting that with this activity, there's a lot of like imagination of like visual spaces and visual things. I was also starting to get this feeling of like the aroma for me was like dirty money. Like I just got this aroma of like crime and betrayal. And I was also starting to smell like cologne, like I don't know, like I was just thinking of like old money and like a man's cologne, the patriarchy, if you will. I don't know. But ultimately I kind of settled on the scent of arrogance, and I find that really interesting. Like I said, would not have expected at all to go in that direction, but it was really cool. And I really enjoyed it. I'll do one more. And yeah, for this one, it was the Prince, which once again, another card that has come up. I think with the activities, it's bound to happen, but I think it'll be really interesting to take a look at the end, how they sort of connect throughout the weeks. But yeah, for this one, I got the Prince of Wands, which I'm just grabbing here. And yeah, he's really cool. I really like him. I've come to like him quite a bit. The princes, I don't know, sometimes I struggle to connect with like, I don't know, the core cards in this deck are really interesting. There's times where I'm like, yeah, I love them, and there's times where I'm like, I don't know, they don't make any sense to me. Maybe I'm being dramatic though. But yeah, so for this guy, we got bonfire vibes. I mean, we are full on fire. I'm thinking I feel like a huge fire. I'm smelling the fire where the smoke is very large. I mean, it can, depending on where you're standing and where the wind is wafting, it's going straight up into your nostrils. I'm also thinking of sweat, so I'm thinking like the heat of summer, like a summer night. It's kind of sweaty, and I'm also thinking, I don't know, I started to think of like a garden as well, and like dirt again. Like dirt was kind of a common thing. I feel like I was constantly smelling soil, which is really interesting. But like different soil in different environments, which have different scents, I guess, depending on the mineral and content within the soil. And also getting this feeling of like almost like compost as well, and essential oils. Like, I don't know what, I think it was like the yellowness on the edges was really giving me this idea of like oil. I was like sandalwood, frankincense, things like that. I don't know why I was getting these like oily scent situations, but all of that started to give me this feeling of like beauty and dedication at work. So that was kind of like the first aroma that I got, was like the aroma of beauty and dedication at work. So like in motion, beauty and dedication in motion. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. I also kind of came to this like energetic ease. I don't know where any of it comes from, but the aroma of energetic ease and the aroma of fearlessness. So yeah, he was really cool. And yeah, I feel like the fun thing about these is like, as just kind of like, they can be as silly or as serious as you want, but like sometimes when they are unexpected, they make you want to take it even further. And so I always want to like do more, and I'm like inspired to like, okay, maybe I'll come up with a reading for this card, like this is really interesting, or like I want to write about it, or write a poem, maybe journal about it. How do I see this happening in the world and myself, like these kinds of things. So it I don't know, it just tends to provide me with like more ideas. Like I go down this path and they beget ideas, which beget ideas, which beget ideas. So I really enjoy that aspect. But yeah, let's move into the reading. So for the first question, what in my environment is being drawn into my being? I was kind of nervous, to be honest. I was like, well, what is it going to say about me? Like, what is the thoth going to tell me? I don't know. It's the first one that I was like, kind of like, suspicious of the thoth, to say the least. But as usual, it came through very, as I said, well, as I felt last week with, the voice of the thoth, I do feel like I kind of expected it to be harsher than it is. And so, gratefully enough, it gave me the Four of Swords. And so this card, I know the title / keyword is truce. And so, but usually we're looking at this, I know in the Spirit Keeper's Tarot, it's called the Convalescent. We're usually looking at this card as a card of like rest. And it's not one like in the meaning of truce, it's not one that's maybe like a lasting form of rest, but it is a peaceful point. It is a peaceful moment of centeredness. And so for me, when just looking at the image itself, I'm thinking about peace amidst the chaos. And it's something that's been coming up quite a bit in my thothtober readings so far. But this centeredness and quiet, I live quite quietly, but there's a lot kind of going on around me. And I don't know, I just feel like what's being drawn into my being is the ability to pause and manage emotion and mental processes in the midst of like dense energies or high activities. So that's just was a really interesting thing, especially because I think it's something that I'm working on, and I do feel also surrounded by that energy in what I consume and take in, as well as the people that I'm around. I don't know, something about it just is very, very cool. So for the second question, how is this being dispersed through my being? I think the reading just kept getting more interesting to me. I think, yeah, this was just the most surprising and interesting reading I felt so far. So I got the Nine of Wands Strength, which I recently got the Nine of Wands in a whole other context in my Spirit Keepers book of readings, studies and readings in there. I got the Nine of Wands in the Heindel, and so that really took me on a journey, and it's one that I'm continuing to go on. But for this one specifically, with this keyword of strength and the sun and moon there, I mean, I felt like, how is this being dispersed through my being? I felt like when I'm thinking of strength, I'm thinking of like muscles, I'm thinking of like bones and things like that. And so I feel like it's going to those places. And my muscles, I feel like it's strengthening me. It's giving me like more, the ability to sort of carry more, the ability to like do more things. The stronger you are, sort of the wider access you get to certain activities and things that you can take part in. And with the sun and the moon and this sort of like staff or wand going through the center, I felt like almost like that's kind of spinal and bone. Like I said, with bones, like I feel like my spine is being fortified. Is giving Jed, the pillar, Osiris related, which we'll get to soon. But even like with the red, I'm thinking like blood vessels and like, I don't know, in your heart, like it's everywhere. It's from head to toe, from the sun to the moon. It's going everywhere. This feeling, this idea of centeredness and the ability to pause and assess and be at peace in the midst of what's going on around you. I feel like, yeah, it's a strengthening thing that kind of spreads throughout your entire being. And yeah, it makes you stronger. It makes you more fortified. And when we think about that Nine of Wands card in other systems, like I said, with the Spirit, well, I wasn't talking about the Spirit Keepers with this one, with the Heindel, but the Spirit Keepers, what is it? The Pugilist. It's the Pugilist, which is a whole journey also that I went on with my friend who does the study with me. So a journey with the Nine of Wands that I have been on recently. But anyway, that's how it's being dispersed through my being. And how is it influencing my actions? Like I said, the reading gets more interesting as we go. We've got the Nine of Wands again. The Devil. You've got the Devil. And I don't really like this card. I don't like the phallicness of it. It's not my favorite, personally, as far as depictions of the devil go. But, here we are. I'll take it. I mean, I have no choice in this case. But it was really interesting because, I really rarely get this card, honestly. I think in general, but in this deck specifically, I don't know how many times I've ever gotten this card. So it was really interesting to kind of get my first impressions of it, but then also go into Mirror of the Soul, which is the one that I go to all the time, as you probably know if you've seen the Thoth video so far, last year and this year. But yeah, I think with the question around how is it influencing my actions, like if I'm acting consciously, unconsciously, intentionally, automatically, things like that. I think I'm acting more consciously, more in sort of this more control state, being more grounded, with more like active masculine energy, but also, as it says in the guidebook and as it talks about, like more creatively. I think like more aware of what's happening and the ability to sort of affect outcomes, like with my renewed strength. Yeah, I really focused on the creative aspect, specifically because that's what's emphasized in this particular system, this card, as opposed to like other devils you might come across. Specifically, I think the way it talked about every desire, like I think it said like with wisdom, you begin to see that like every desire, every imprisonment, all possessiveness leads only to frustration and suffering. And I think, like I talked about before with the peace and things like that, I think it's something that I've been especially processing as of late, and shifting my behavior because of that is understanding the role of desire in my life and how I want to relate to my desires. Like, how do I want my desires to influence me? Do I want really to be driven by them in any sort of large way? How do I want to pursue them if I want to pursue them? Like what role do they play? And so just really beginning to understand the possessiveness of my desires and how I seek to possess the things that I want, and like in life, and yeah, just finding more wisdom in that place. But yeah, and so through that conscious, that more awareness and more consciousness, there I become more able to creatively engage with the desires that I have and the situations in my life. The affirmation for this card was, I am the master of my life. So I take that to be quite relevant here and pretty spot on when it comes to what's coming into me and how I'm sort of expressing it outwardly. Is, yeah. And it also talked about with the staff with the wings and the snakes. Here we have two snakes, which I would have seen as the Uraeus originally, but I find it interesting, and I like how it said they're the snakes of Horus and Osiris, which, if you know, you know that Osiris is going to be who I'm looking at right now, on another part of the room, but there he is, my altar. Osiris, I was going to say Horus. Osiris is going to be something that is going to immediately ping my brain, and Horus as well, obviously, by extension, and the snakes, because that is my guide this through this month. So that was really cool and really interesting. I didn't expect to, oh my gosh, am I going to talk about it all the time, all the unexpected fun things that are coming through these readings and these activities. Lastly, the question is, why is this process occurring? Is there a purpose behind the process? Is it patterned? Is it bound by time and space? Is it a thing that's happening now? Does it continually happen? Who knows? Anyway, I got the Queen of Cups. Yeah, she was really cool to see here, especially as conversations around the queens on the Discord are ongoing. And yeah, so for me, the way I initially read this was another card that I wanted to go into the book to sort of get more insight into. But for me, it was about bringing about a deeper inflow state of being. And I've been forgetting about flow in the creative sense, in sort of the not psychological, maybe the neuroscientific way of flow. Thinking about an article I read years ago, I want to say about Michael Siegel. I'll be amazed if I got that correct. But it made an effect on me. There were a couple of articles that I read about flow back in the day, which goes back maybe to my last, I don't know which video it was, where I talked about attunement and entrainment and music and things like that. That happened with sound last week. But anyway, I tend to forget about this aspect of flow. I tend to think about it in a very like spiritual, like flow and surrender with the Hanged Man. I think about that. But like thinking about flow in an active sense of creativity, and how like what happens when you put yourself in that creative state and you flow and you create something, and it's like, it's such a beautiful thing. And so I don't know, bringing about that deeper flow state of being, and because she's so sort of shrouded, right, I also thought about it as we live by faith and not by sight, biblical reference. And yeah, it's just faith filled, like without seeing physically but seeing spiritually. And so having that not only like third eye sense of sight and being a seer in that way, but the way that it permeates, that way of seeing and believing and trusting, that's more of like an embodied experience. But some of the quotes that I liked from the book, where it says, her being cannot be understood intellectually, you must feel and sense it. And she will not compromise emotionally. So for those, I kind of felt it as like experiencing the mystery with my senses. And that's, I think I talked about this week 1 with just being just that equanimity and that, and not in the sense where you're indifferent, but the way that you experience the mysteries of life through the body. Which of course, this is especially the last 2 cards, very much on par with thothtober, which I really enjoyed. but also just teaching me to be firm in how I operate in my life, and the ways that I've sort of questioned how to respond to desire, how to respond to undesired situations and outcomes and people and all the things. Like how do I want to respond to those things, and sort of sometimes feeling like the ways that I respond, though I feel strongly that they work best for me, I then sometimes sort of think that, well, maybe I should change that. Maybe I should be different, which is a valid and good thing. I think doubt is very good and it's very productive. But it's also it can disintegrate to a certain level, things that should remain strong. Or that are beneficial to have as very stable. Doubt can sort of, disintegrate is not the word. Not dissolve. There's another word. It's another D word. I can't think of it. If you know what I mean, put it in the comments maybe. But yeah, I think doubt sometimes cannot be super helpful. So I felt like for me it was a reminder and a lesson for me to remain firm in how I emotionally operate in my life throughout different circumstances. And I like how it said the light of consciousness causes unconscious energies to arise in new forms. So as I was talking about with the devil and being more conscious and being more able to sort of be the master of my own life in that sense, which, I'm seeing the paradoxical nature of what I'm saying with the flow and being the master, but that's it. It's like, it's that balance that I seek, but the light of being more conscious. So kind of the piece that's being drawn in, that centeredness, the way that it's strengthening me, making me more creative and more active, is also bringing and more conscious, is causing unconscious energies to arise in new form, which I think is a good thing. I think it takes those things that we expect to come about in a very particularly maybe negative way. I don't know. We tend to think of the unconscious as the shadow and the bad things, but it's maybe just unseen things or untouched things, maybe hidden things, mysteries, and even myths as well. Like, not everything needs to come out, but I do think it's interesting to think about unconscious energies arising in new forms. I think it's a very beautiful way to experience more delight in life, which there's so many ways I could go down that path. I feel like just saying it is not really getting at the full feelings that I'm having. But lastly, the quote from there that I felt like was sort of the crux of the answer to the question of, why is this process occurring, which is emotional rebirth has taken place, is what it says. And I was like, okay, emotional rebirth. So what I'm experiencing now and what is being drawn in and the experience that I'm having with, what I'm sort of inhaling and is being dispersed, kind of what's around me. And it reminds me, first of all, that what's around me is also in my control. So that's something to think about. But yeah, that emotional rebirth is really interesting, because we started off in this place of being able to pause and regulate emotions and mental processes. And I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to, I'm very grateful, I feel, to be in a process of emotional rebirth. It also talked about the lotus of Isis, which, when we're talking about my love for Osiris, also extends very much so to my love of Isis. It's kind of a given. And, she's been very interesting in the way that she's showing up as of this year, specifically. A lot of connection with Isis, and it's been really incredibly powerful. So I can totally see those connections kind of touching all these different areas of my life, and how cool, how so very cool that I get to experience that with the Thoth deck and during thothtober. It's really cool and beautiful. So another sort of like ping moment, something to pay attention to, are those connections, and I love that. I love that about the Thoth, just being able to have those connections to a pantheon, and that I have deep experiences with. So I get to sort of get those connection points and little messages that come about through that. So pretty cool. But yeah, that's the reading. What I loved about this reading is just the fact that it also has a counterpart, so it'll be really fun to then talk about that in the next one. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Have any thoughts, please feel free to share them. If you're enjoying Thothtober or you enjoyed the video, give the video a like, and if you'd like to join in, all of the information is in the description again. I love you dearly, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.